On the day my billionaire grandmother's will was read, she left everyone millions of dollars. I was the only one who got just $80. My mother smiled. My brother laughed at me. I said nothing, just stared at the two bills slid across the table like an insult. My grandmother had never been random. Not with money, not with people. And this felt too deliberate to be a mistake. When I held the bills up to the light in that calm conference room, I noticed something odd. Tiny marks so faint most people would miss them. But I didn't. My name is Jocelyn, and in my family, I was always the one no one bet on. Not lazy, not troubled, just quiet. While my brother learned how to command every room he walked into, I learned how to watch. My parents praised his drive, his deals, his future. Me. They called me reliable, steady, the one who wouldn't make waves. What they really meant was, I wouldn't fight back. My grandmother, Thelma Grant, was different. To the world, she was the woman who built a logistics empire from nothing: trucks, warehouses, contracts that moved half the goods across the South. People respected her, feared her, a little returned her calls fast. But to me, she was just Grandma, the one who noticed when I listened more than I spoke. She used to say silence reveals more than noise ever could. I guess she was right. When her health started fading, the family visits became shorter. My mother would drop by with updates about her busy schedule. My brother would stand in the doorway, phone in hand, promising to come back soon. They left quickly. I stayed. Not for credit, not for thanks, just because someone needed to. I read to her when her eyes got tired, adjusted her pillows when breathing hurt, listened to the same stories without rushing her. One afternoon, she grabbed my hand, weak but firm, and whispered, "Most people run from quiet. You don't. That's why you'll see what they miss." I thought it was just the pain talking. I had no idea she was already planning something bigger. After she passed, the funeral was small, controlled, exactly how she wanted it. Then came the invitation to the will reading at a downtown Atlanta law firm. I didn't expect much, I'd trained myself not to, but a small part of me hoped she'd remembered the one person who stayed. I walked into that office not knowing everything I thought I knew about my family was about to be proven right in the worst way. The lawyer cleared his throat and started with the big numbers. Millions. More millions. Smiles spread across faces. And then he got to me. The room went dead silent when he said my name. If you want to know exactly what happened next and how $80 turned out to be the most dangerous gift anyone in that room ever received, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You're not going to believe what my grandmother hid in plain sight, and what it cost everyone who laughed. When my grandmother's health began to decline, it didn't happen overnight. It started with small things: forgetting where she put her glasses, tiring faster after short walks around her house on the outskirts of Atlanta. She still ran parts of the logistics company from her study phone calls about routes and contracts, but the energy wasn't the same. Doctors said it was age catching up, nothing dramatic, just a slow fade. I started coming over more often. At first, a couple times a week, then almost every day after work. Her house was calm, filled with old ledgers and framed photos of truck depots from the early days. I'd make coffee the way she liked it, black, no sugar, and sit with her while she went through mail or watched the news. My mother would call to check in, but her visits were short. She'd arrive in a rush, talk about her schedule, maybe bring a casserole that stayed in the fridge untouched. "I have a meeting across town," she'd say, checking her watch twice before leaving. My brother Easton dropped by even less. He'd stand in the doorway, lean against the frame, tell Grandma she looked strong, then take a call outside. Aunt Tanya, my mother's sister, came once every few months, usually when she needed advice on some business idea. They all had reasons. Busy lives, long drives, important commitments. I didn't. My job was steady, my apartment close enough, and I didn't mind the time. So I stayed. I learned her routine fast. Mornings were better, she'd want the newspaper read out loud when her eyes got blurry. Afternoons she napped, and I'd handle small things, refilling prescriptions, watering the plants on the back porch, making sure the nurse who came 3 times a week had everything she needed. Evenings we talked, or sometimes just sat without saying much. One night after dinner, she was having trouble breathing. I adjusted the pillows behind her, propped her up higher. She watched me the whole time, eyes sharp despite everything else failing. When I sat back down, she reached for my hand. Her grip surprised me, still strong when she wanted it to be. "You're still here," she said quietly. "Of course I am. Most people leave when there's nothing left to gain." I didn't know what to say to that. Another time late, when the house was dark except for the lamp by her bed, she started talking about the early years. How she bought her first truck with a loan. No bank wanted to give a woman back then. How she drove routes herself at first, sleeping in the cab to save money. She told the stories, slowly pausing when pain hit, but never rushing the ending. I listened without interrupting, even when I'd heard versions before. She noticed. "You don't correct me," she said one evening, half smiling. "Most people do. They think they're helping. I like hearing it your way." That's rare. There were moments when the pain medication made her drift, but even then she'd come back sharp. Once, half asleep, she murmured something about money revealing people faster than anything else. I thought she was dreaming. She wasn't. Toward the end, the visits from everyone else stopped almost completely. My mother sent flowers that wilted on the table. Easton texted that he'd swing by soon. He never did. Aunt Tanya called once, asked if there was anything she could do from afar. I told her just to keep Grandma in her thoughts. I kept showing up. I read the same articles twice if she asked. Held her hand when the breathing machine hummed too loud. Stayed through the nights when sleep wouldn't come for either of us. Not because I expected anything. Not because I thought it would matter later. Just because it felt right. One afternoon, sunlight coming weak through the curtains, she looked at me longer than usual. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but every word landed clear. "They'll show you who they are when they think there's nothing left to lose. Watch closely." I nodded, throat tight. She squeezed my hand once, then let go. I didn't know it then, but that was the last real conversation we had. A few days after Grandma passed, the funeral took place at a small church on the edge of Atlanta. It was exactly what she would have wanted: simple, no long speeches, no crowds. Just close family, a few old business associates, and a short service. The casket was closed. White flowers lined the front, nothing flashy. Everyone wore black shoes, polished faces arranged in the right kind of solemn. I stood near the back during the service, hands clasped in front of me. My mother, Gail Grant, moved through the room, accepting condolences with a quiet nod, dabbing her eyes at the perfect moments. Easton Grant. My brother worked the aisle like he was at a networking event firm. Handshakes, low voice, confident posture. Aunt Tanya Hayes, my mother's sister, stayed close to them, whispering about logistics for the reception afterward. No one came over to me. No one asked how I was holding up. I didn't expect them to. In our family, grief was something you performed, not something you shared unless it served a purpose. I overheard fragments as people milled around after the pastor finished. "How much do you think the company's worth now? Those warehouses alone. Easton's probably in line for a big piece." Each comment landed quietly, but I felt them. I told myself this wasn't the place that people process loss differently. Still, the words stuck. When my mother caught my eye across the room, I thought for a second she might walk over. Instead, she gave a small, sympathetic smile and turned back to a conversation about the lawyer's schedule. The burial was quick. We stood around the grave under gray skies while the casket lowered. I felt the finality hit hard. The one person who truly saw me was gone. I wanted to say something, do something, but I just stood there. Silence was what I knew best. Afterward, people left fast. Cars pulled away, plans already shifting to what came next. Money does that. It pushes you forward, doesn't let you linger. I went back to Grandma's house alone that evening. The air still carried her faint scent mixed with dust now. I walked through the room, slowly touching the arm of her favorite chair, the stack of files on her desk, the coffee mug still in the sink from the last morning. I sat in the study and let myself feel the emptiness properly for the first time. A week later, envelopes arrived thick formal from the downtown law firm handling the estate. The reading was set for the following Tuesday. I didn't sleep much the night before. Not because I expected a windfall, I'd long ago stopped hoping for that, but because part of me wondered if Grandma had left some message, some acknowledgement of the time I'd spent with her. The law office felt cold the morning I arrived. Dark wood panels, leather chairs in perfect rows, hushed voices. I took a seat toward the end of the long table. My mother walked in first, composed, taking the head spot like it was reserved. Easton followed, relaxed, greeting the lawyer with an easy smile. Aunt Tanya slipped in beside my mother, patting her hand. The lawyer, Mr. Floyd Rice, opened a thick folder and began. He started with the company shares and liquid assets. My mother inherited $5 million outright, plus a portion of ongoing dividends. She exhaled slowly, kept her expression steady, but I saw the relief. Easton got $4 million along with a trust for future business ventures. He leaned back, grin breaking through before he caught himself. Aunt Tanya received $1 million, a surprise to her by the look on her face she hadn't expected to be included at all. Then, Mr. Rice turned the page. And for Jocelyn Grant, the room stilled. I felt every pair of eyes shift toward me. The sum of $80. He said it plainly, no emphasis. For a beat, no one reacted. Then Easton let out a short, sharp laugh like he couldn't hold it in. He shook his head, covering his mouth too late. My mother smiled. Not wide, not cruel, just a small, satisfied curve at the corners, the kind that said everything she'd always believed had been confirmed. Aunt Tanya looked down at the table, lips pressed together to hide her own amusement. Mr. Rice slid 2 crisp $40 bills across the polished wood toward me. They stopped right in front of my hands. I didn't touch them right away. I just looked at the money, feeling the air in the room thicken. Grandma had never been careless. Not with contracts, not with people. $80 wasn't an oversight. It couldn't be. But in that moment, with my brother's laugh still echoing and my mother's smile fixed in place, all I could do was sit there and look at the 2 bills. That same evening, after the will reading, I drove straight home. My apartment was calm when I walked in. I dropped my keys on the counter, hung up my coat, and sat down at the small kitchen table without turning on all the lights. The 2 $40 bills were still in my purse. I hadn't touched them again in the office, but now I pulled them out and laid them side by side under the lamp. Most people would have crumpled them up or shoved them away. I couldn't. Grandma had never done anything without reason. $80 handed to me like that in front of everyone, it didn't add up. I smoothed the bills flat. They looked ordinary at first, crisp, new standard print. But I tilted one toward the light, then the other. Something caught my eye near the edges. Tiny, deliberate marks. Not tears, not creases from wear. Precise lines, almost invisible unless you knew to look. One bill had 3 faint dots positioned exactly above certain letters in the serial number. The other had a thin scratch that connected 2 digits in a way that formed a pattern. I leaned closer. The patterns matched codes Grandma used in her old ledger's short sequences she relied on for private accounts, things she never put on computers. My pulse picked up. This wasn't random. She had marked them on purpose. I sat there for a long time, turning the bills over, checking every corner. No message written, no obvious note. Just those subtle signs. The kind only someone who paid attention would notice. I thought about throwing them away, pretending it was nothing. But that wasn't me. And it definitely wasn't her. The next morning, I called in sick to work. I knew exactly where I needed to go, the downtown Atlanta branch Grandma had used for decades. The one where she kept certain things separate from the main estate accounts. She'd taken me there once, years ago, introduced me to the staff, said it was the place that still does things the old way. I drove over around midday, parking in the garage below the building. The lobby hadn't changed much: marble floors, high ceilings, tellers behind glass, private offices along the back wall. Everything hushed, professional. I walked up to the reception desk. "I need to see the branch manager about an account linked to Thelma Grant." The receptionist's eyes widened slightly at the name. She picked up the phone, spoke low, then pointed me toward a hallway. "Ms. Sonia Gupta will see you now." The office was small, neat, with a large safe visible through an open door in the corner. Ms. Gupta stood when I entered, mid-50s, sharp suit, calm expression. She gestured to a chair. "How can I help you, Miss Grant?" I didn't sit right away. I reached into my bag, pulled out the 2 bills, and placed them on her desk. These were left to me in my grandmother's will. "I think there's something on them she wanted me to bring here." She glanced down politely, at first expecting maybe a sentimental gesture. Then she picked one up, turned it under her desk lamp. Her fingers paused. She took the second bill, compared them side by side. Her face changed color, drained posture, stiffened. She looked up at me, eyes narrow, voice careful. "Where exactly did you get these?" "From the will reading yesterday. They were given to me personally." Ms. Gupta didn't respond immediately. She walked to her office door and locked it quietly. Then she returned, sat down, and studied the marks again. "These aren't accidents," she said finally. "They're verification codes your grandmother designed herself years ago. We were instructed never to discuss them unless someone arrived with the exact sequence." My mouth went dry. "What does that mean?" She folded her hands on the desk. "It means there's a private deposit box registered only to Thelma Grant. Completely outside the estate, outside probate. She said one day someone would come with proof, and that someone would be the only person allowed access." I couldn't speak for a second. She watched me, waiting. "If you're ready," she continued, "I can take you to it now." We walked down a secure corridor, cooler air, heavier doors. She entered a code, then used a key. Inside the vault room, rows of boxes lined the walls. She stopped at one in the middle, inserted another key, and pulled the long metal drawer out. I wasn't prepared for what was inside. Neat stacks of documents, investment folders, bonds, and beneath them rows of gold bars catching the low light. More than I could take in at once. But on top of everything sat a plain envelope. My name written in Grandma's handwriting. Ms. Gupta stepped back, giving me space. She looked at me with something close to respect. And in that moment, as I stared at the contents of the box, I realized the real inheritance had never been announced in that law office. It had been handed to me in 2 marked bills. Then, Ms. Gupta froze completely when she glanced one more time at the precise marks on the money. As the metal drawer slid fully open, the contents came into clear view. Rows of gold bars stacked neatly gleamed under the vault's soft lighting. Below them, thick folders labeled with investment accounts, offshore bonds, and stock certificates in companies I recognized from Grandma's business dealings. A quick mental tally told me this wasn't small change. This was substantial. Ms. Gupta stood quietly to the side. Conservatively, she said in a low voice, "This box holds assets worth approximately $35 million, all titled solely to Thelma Grant, transferred here over the last few years." I stared, unable to move at first. 35 million, separate from everything announced yesterday, hidden. But what drew me forward was the envelope on top. Plain cream paper, my name in Grandma's distinctive handwriting, Jocelyn. My fingers trembled slightly as I picked it up. Ms. Gupta stepped farther back, giving privacy. I tore the seal carefully and unfolded the single sheet inside. "My dearest Jocelyn, if you're reading this, it means you saw what no one else bothered to look for. That alone proves I chose right. I didn't leave you $80 because that's all you deserved. I did it because I needed you to witness the truth for yourself, how people react when they believe someone has been given nothing. Money doesn't change character. It only strips away the pretense faster. I watched them over the years, the short visits, the excuses, the way conversations always turned to what they needed, what they expected next. They loved the idea of me more than they loved me. You were different. You showed up when there was no audience. You stayed when there was nothing to gain. You listened without calculating. That's why this is yours. The assets in this box are not a prize for being quiet. They are a responsibility. Use them to protect yourself. Build a life where no one can make you feel small for their comfort. When they come asking, and they will remember what you saw in that conference room. Their smiles, their silence, their quick relief, when they thought you'd been dismissed. Love that waits for a payout was never love at all. I trusted you because you never asked me to prove my worth to you. Now trust yourself the same way. Don't shrink anymore. Grandma, I read it twice, then again slower. Each sentence struck harder than the last. She had planned the whole thing, the small amount in the public will, the marked bills as the only key, all of it designed to reveal who would stand by me and who wouldn't. My chest tightened as the reality sank in. She had seen everything, the family's indifference, long before I fully admitted it to myself, and she had protected me in a way no one else ever had. Tears started falling before I could stop them. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet streams down my face as I held the letter closer. She knew they would laugh. She knew they would move on fast. And she made sure I would have what I needed to do the same on my own terms. Ms. Gupta cleared her throat softly. Your grandmother left instructions for immediate transfer options, including an anonymous trust if you choose. Everything here is already structured to move at your direction only. I nodded, wiping my eyes. The money suddenly felt secondary. What mattered was the clarity she'd given me, the validation, the proof that someone had seen my worth when no one else bothered. I folded the letter carefully, placed it back in the envelope, and held it against my chest. For the first time, the weight in my hands didn't feel like a burden. It felt like freedom. As I read the final lines again, tears fell harder. 3 days after leaving the bank, the knock came sharp and impatient. I checked the peephole. My mother, Gail Grant, stood in front with Easton and Aunt Tanya right behind her. All three wore practiced expressions, concern mixed with determination. I took a slow breath and opened the door. Jocelyn, my mother said immediately, stepping forward without waiting. We need to talk. They moved inside before I could respond. Easton scanned the living room quickly, eyes lingering on the modest furniture. Aunt Tanya closed the door behind them. My mother didn't sit. She faced me directly. We heard about the private account. The one you accessed this week. I stayed calm. I don't know what you're talking about. Easton snorted. Come on. Someone at the bank mentioned it to a contact. Over 30 million. Separate from the will. Aunt Tanya nodded. It's a lot of money, Jocelyn. More than enough for everyone. My mother reached out like she wanted to touch my arm. I stepped back. This doesn't have to turn ugly, she said softly. We're family. We can work this out quietly. Easton crossed his arms. Yeah, family. You could share without making a scene? The words hit hard, but I didn't flinch. You think I owe you because of blood? My mother's expression hardened slightly. Your grandmother built that company for all of us. Not just one person. Aunt Tanya jumped in. I was there too, helping with early contracts. I deserve consideration. Easton leaned forward. Look, I have investments lined up. This could set everyone up properly. You don't even need that much. I felt anger rise hot and steady. You didn't visit when she was sick. You barely showed up after she passed. And now you're here because there's money. My mother frowned. That's not fair. We all grieved in our own way. Easton rolled his eyes. Don't play the victim. Grandma always favored you anyway. The quiet one who stayed around. Aunt Tanya added, exactly. You got the time with her. Now it's time to balance things. Their voices overlapped, pressing in. Reasons, justifications, expectations. All of it wrapped in the word family like it meant automatic rights. I walked to my bag on the counter, pulled out a folder the bank had prepared, and placed it on the coffee table. My mother eyed it. What's that legal documents from the trust? I said evenly. Everything in that separate account is protected. No one else has claim. Easton scoffed. We'll see about that. Lawyers can challenge these things. I met his stare. You can try. But there's a clause. Any contest against the private trust triggers penalties, including forfeiture of your shares from the public will. The room went quiet. Aunt Tanya shifted. You're bluffing. It's in writing, I replied. Grandma made sure. My mother's face tightened. You'd really do that to us over money? It's not about the money, I said. It's about what you showed when you thought I had nothing. Easton stepped closer. So what? You're cutting us out now. My mother tried again. Voice softer. Honey, think about this. We can still fix it. Split fairly. Keep peace. I looked at each of them, my mother pleading, Easton angry, Aunt Tanya calculating. No, I said clearly. I'm honoring what Grandma wanted. Easton's voice rose. You think this makes you better? It makes me done pretending I answered. My mother whispered. You'll regret isolating yourself. Maybe I said, but not as much as I'd regret giving in. They stood there, longer arguments, circling tones, shifting from soft to sharp. Threats about lawyers, appeals to blood, reminders of holidays and old times. I waited until they ran out of words. Then I said it straight. I won't share a single penny. After the tense confrontation, things didn't stay quiet for long. My mother hired a lawyer within weeks. Easton and Aunt Tanya joined the suit, claiming undue influence and improper trust setup. They argued the private assets should have been part of the main estate. The case dragged on for 18 months. Depositions, motions, hearings in downtown Atlanta courtrooms. Discovery requests piled up. Experts argued over signatures and intent. I attended every required appearance represented by the firm Grandma had recommended. The trust held firm, ironclad, separate with clear penalties for challenges. Legal fees mounted fast. My mother remortgaged her house to cover costs. Easton dipped into his inheritance share for advances on ventures that never launched. Aunt Tanya borrowed from friends, promising payback once they won. They didn't win. The judge ruled in my favor completely. The trust was valid, created years earlier with full capacity. The challenge triggered the forfeiture clause. Their portions from the public will, millions combined, reverted to charitable foundations Grandma had named as backups. The decision came on a rainy afternoon. I sat in the courtroom as the judge read the final order. No appeals viable. Case closed. My mother lost the house to foreclosure 6 months later. She downsized to a small apartment, took a part-time job for the first time in decades. Easton's credit tanked from unpaid legal bills. Planned investments fell through. He moved back in with friends, scraping together consulting gigs. Aunt Tanya's relationship soured when loans went unpaid. She stopped reaching out to anyone in the family circle. Phone calls stopped. Messages dried up. Holiday invitations never came. Social media blocks appeared one by one. I didn't fight it. The silence felt earned. I changed my number eventually, moved to a quieter neighborhood outside the city, focused on managing the assets, discreetly, conservative investments, anonymous donations to causes supporting financial independence for women facing family pressure. A year after the ruling, I found out I was pregnant. Ember Grant arrived on a clear spring morning, tiny, fierce, uncomplicated. Holding her for the first time shifted everything again. No conditions, no expectations, just presence. I built routines around her. Simple days, secure future set aside for her choices, not mine or anyone else's. No one from the old family came to the hospital. No cards, no calls. And it didn't break me. Years passed in steady rhythm. Ember grew curious, confident, unafraid to take space. I watched her without the old weight of needing approval. Looking back, Grandma didn't just leave me money. She left me the clearest lesson anyone ever could. Real family isn't about who shares your blood. It's about who shares your burdens when there's nothing in it for them. Money only speeds up the truth. It shows you who stays and who walks the moment the balance changes. If you're watching this and you've ever felt invisible in your own family, ever shrunk yourself to keep the peace, know this: your worth isn't decided by how loud you are or how much you give away. It's decided by you. Set your boundaries, protect your peace, and never apologize for refusing to let people treat you as less just because they're used to it. That's the real inheritance Grandma gave me, not the 35 million, but the freedom to choose myself without guilt. Thank you for listening to my story all the way to the end. It means a lot that you stayed. I wish you all strength, health, and the kind of luck that comes from standing in your truth. If this story touched you or made you think about your own life, please hit that like button, subscribe for more real stories like this, turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one, and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. You never know whose life it might change. Take care, and I'll see you in the next story.